Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming into the Gamer Guild podcast, your one-stop shop for all things in this wide world of gaming. I'm your co-host, Noah Bowers. Cody, unfortunately, couldn't make it today, but the show must go on. This week, we have another hit game that has graced us in the great year of 2025, and we got some interesting news about the next Xbox console and some fun releases coming up this year. But without further ado, I would love to introduce our very special guest this week, an Augusta University junior communication major, Jordan Jones, also known as JJ.
Yep, that's me.
Welcome to the podcast, JJ. Really excited to have you here.
Really excited to be here.
Thanks for coming on. I'm sure you have been in the studio many a time, so you know the drill. The first question that we'd love to ask our guests here at the Gamer Guild is, what is your favorite video game and why?
Favorite video game? That's a tough question. As of right now, I'm still going to advocate heavily for Elden Ring.
Okay.
I know it's been out for a fat minute now. I know it's been out for a little while. I hear they're coming out with some kind of spin-off sequel here shortly. Yep. But it's still one of my favorite games, just with the narrative and the storytelling and just the collection of items that you can go about. And also just how you can, I guess, build your character over time and just the different directions you can go in that avenue. And so just overall, the entirety of the world building and the lore and the character development that you can have, I think it's a wonderful game altogether.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably From Software's, magnum opus.
Yep, always.
So it's really, really well received. I mean, we've talked about it so many times here on the podcast. Huge game. Great choice.
Thank you.
So I'm guessing you played the other From Software games before that, or was that your first one?
I actually didn't. Actually,
wow.
I had gotten Dark Souls maybe like a couple months or years prior, and then didn't like it. Was like, this is not for me. I don't like FromSoft apparently.
Interesting.
Played Elden Ring, liked Elden Ring so much, and it left such an impression on me that I then went back and played Dark Souls. I think it was 1, 2. I played 1 and 2 and 3. And then I'm working on Sekiro's right now.
Okay.
So I went and just said, all right, Elden Ring, you got me. That was a good one. Time to go delve into all these other FromSoft games.
Wow, look at that. Yeah, I think Sekiro is probably actually my favorite FromSoft game. No,
okay.
Not even close. But that's like my favorite style, the feudal Japan, and I love watching the gameplay for that one. But no, I have not. Okay. I've not beat any From Software game. Not a big fan of FromSoft in general.
Really?
Yeah, it's not like my cup of tea. But they're great games. Oh, absolutely beautiful, artistically. So. Great choice. Great choice.
Elden Ring, I hear there's 6 or 7 endings. I've gotten all of them.
Wow.
So I went 100%. Ahead and just said 100% at Elden Ring.
And Shadow of the Erdtree as well?
Yes. Wow. That as well. Had to get that as well. Had to go ahead and...
We got a real gamer on our hands. Love to see it. All right. Well, we'll talk about more of the DLC for sure when it's... I guess it's not a DLC. It is like a standalone game. It's
actually going to be a standalone game, which I was surprised about. I thought it was going to be like, okay, we get another DLC. Fine with that. They said, no, it's going to be its own standalone game. I have to pay for it. But it's actually not full price, like they didn't do the $70 for it. So I was surprised. I was like, hey, it's standalone, but it's also not $70 this go around.
It's a weird mix. It's a weird mix. So we'll talk about it when it releases, because I think that's going to be an interesting one for sure. Without further ado, though, let's talk about some of the new releases that released over the past 2 weeks since we've been here. First one is going to be 2 Point Museum. This came out Tuesday, March 4th from 2 Point Studios for $30. So not a full price game. It's out on everything minus the Switch. It's the newest business management game from 2 Point. 2 Point Studios. It's got an 85 on Metacritic.
That's pretty good.
So it's, for the fans of that game, it's reviewing pretty highly. So good for them.
Very good for them.
I believe that this is like an indie game. I haven't heard too much about this. A business management game seems like a very niche genre. Have you heard of this at all? Or
I've not heard of this game.
Okay.
Business management. I used to delve. I think if anybody ever was a cool math kid growing up, they all know about the Papa's Pizzeria game. That's what it's kind of giving me the vibe of. And so if you really love those kind of games growing up, then this would probably sound like a game that's still right up your alley. And I might play it just for like nostalgia's sake of being like, okay, cool. How do I manage a business?
Exactly.
But I still got the skills I used to.
I mean, I like simulation games like that for sure. Very nerdy, but for $30, if you're looking for just a quick indie game to check out and support, 2 Point Museum, 85 on Metacritic, so not bad at all. The big one though, came out last week. This came out Thursday, March 6th, from Hazelight Studios. $50 on everything minus the Switch. $50. Not full price.
It's not 70.
And that was Split Fiction. Now, this was a highly anticipated title. We talked about this when it was first announced over at the Game Awards last year, and we have been very, very excited for this since it was announced. And now that it's finally released, it is the newest co-op game from Hazelight Studios, the people that brought you A Way Out and It Takes Two, a previous Game of the Year winner. And it was a huge success. I think this is the biggest release of 2025, if I'm not mistaken.
So far, yes.
At least on premium release.
I would not disagree with that statement.
I think Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 might be close, but this one has absolutely shattered records. So let's go into the numbers here. It has reached over 250,000 concurrent players peak on Steam alone. That's just on Steam. Crazy stuff. That is a new record for premium release from EA, previously beating out Battlefield 5, which was around like 117,000 concurrent players on Steam. So awesome to see there. Over 1 million copies sold in the first 48 hours as well. Insane.
That's great numbers.
Insane stuff. Really excited for the people over at Hazelight Studios. It has a 91 on Metacritic right now, which is extremely high. That one's probably going to be tough to beat in terms of highest Metacritic.
For the remainder of the year, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Because I think the thing that this reminds me of is when Astrobot came out last year. It came out, had like a 92, 93 on Metacritic, and we were like, oh, that's going to go down. No way.
It's going to go down.
And it won Game of the Year. So we have an early front runner.
We do.
Already.
I've heard a lot about it. I think I keep going back in the PlayStation Store to click on it, read it, and be like, I could.
You could.
I would. Here's a little bit more on it. Got to hear more news about it. See what happens. See if numbers drop. Okay.
I played a couple hours of it. Thoughts? So has Cody. It's pretty fun. It's really, really well made. It doesn't take itself too seriously, as a lot of these like games kind of tend to do. So the kind of corny dialogue, maybe a little bit cringy, but they know that it's like that. They're kind of playing into it.
And they embrace it.
Exactly. It's not like they're trying to be serious and then they
just kind of fun with it.
It's landing flat. Yeah, no, it's totally like whimsical and funny, and some of the really fun platforming that I was kind of impressed with. Really like the movement system as well. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Highly recommend it.
Highly recommend it. Okay.
I will say it's $50. Only one person has to buy it. Okay. And then another person can just buy the friend pass, which is free,
and they can free.
Yeah, and they just join online. So if you have a friend or if you have somebody that you want to play with, only one of y'all has to purchase a copy of the game. Very, very cool initiative there. And the fact that only one person has to purchase the game and there is still over 1 million copies sold in the first 48 hours shows that this game has just absolutely destroyed the market. It is selling like hotcakes. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. It's a lot of fun, especially if you have someone that you want to play with. Really good stuff. And then the last new release of the last 2 weeks was WWE 2K25. This came out Friday, or will be coming out Friday, March 14th. $60 on everything except the Switch. It's the newest game, obviously, in the WWE series, which has had, kind of its ups and its downs. Fans say the best of this game was pretty good. So hopefully, when it does release, it brings those fans back. It's what they're looking for in the franchise. I know there's a couple of tools and gameplay items that were, not included or were included in some of the previous editions. So hopefully when this one drops on Friday, which is tomorrow, it is to everyone's liking. Are you a fan of the WWE games at all?
I used to be.
Okay.
I used to play them on the Wii, oddly enough, back when I was a younger individual. And I never really got the hang of it, I guess you could say. So I wouldn't say I was necessarily a fan, but I do recognize that they are a popular franchise because occasionally I'll still see when I go to GameStop, however people feel about GameStop right now, because it does not
get a lot of business, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. And I'm like, this is nostalgia right here. You need to get your games. This is where we should be getting our games from. Support GameStop and whatnot. But I still go in there and see the advertisements, and I'm like, is that something I might be interested in? It's something that hits like the I used to play these, but am I a person that might go back and play a more recent edition? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
It's like you don't really hear a lot about it.
I'm surprised that it's $60.
That is surprising.
Normally, I mean, these would be $70. I would think it's the brand new, 2K25. So that's cool.
That's the new retail price for most new games that come out, new releases. So I'm surprised that it's only 60.
Yeah, not bad.
I want the other 10.
If you're excited for WWE, check it out. Let us know what you think. Yeah, for the GameStop things, I used to get all like my pre-owned games from GameStop, just on the racks on the shelves there, or they even used to have like the clearance bins.
Hey, buy two, just get this.
Exactly. That's what I was able to get, like all of the old Call of Duties on PS3.
Yep.
That's where I got like the first Fallout games. I got Fallout 3, like
ICA, right?
Yeah, like Fallout New Vegas Game of the Year edition or something like that. And it came with all the DLC. That was like a pre-owned game that I got for like $10.
Yeah, no, I never got any. As a child, never really went and got new games. Would always be like something. If I could find the new game, but it was already pre-owned,
right,
I would normally do that.
Exactly.
Like, it's the same game.
It's the same game. It works. It spins up. We got a less fancy case, I guess. But
I'm not gonna. It's probably not gonna be in this case half the time.
That's
then you start mixing cases, and you're like, I don't know where I put the game at.
No, that's a big pet peeve of mine. Actually, I have younger siblings, and they would do that.
That's what they would do, and I'd be like,
nah, it'd take me off.
I need to find. If we took it out of this case, we should put it back in this case.
Right,
exactly. And
exactly.
they're like, no, we're just going to open this game, take it out, put it in there.
Despicable. And it's on the same level as like people who like don't return the shopping carts after you're done shopping. They just leave it there instead of like putting it in the designated spot.
I used to hate that when I worked at Walmart. They would sometimes people would take all their stuff and they would leave the buggy in the self-checkout. And I'd be like,
that's ridiculous.
Why would we do that?
I mean, why are we that lazy, guys?
Are we really feeling that way today? Is that how we're doing? I just assumed they were having a bad day and it'd be like, okay. Maybe
don't matter.
Not feeling
Everybody
that great.
has a bad day.
Yeah. I try and give people grace. I'd be like, all right, fine. But if it becomes like a habit, I'm like, hey, I've seen you in here a couple times. The cart doesn't go here.
It doesn't go here. Yeah, that's how actually I got into my first street fight, was over a cart.
Over a cart?
No, just kidding. No, I did not. But speaking of Street Fighter, this is not the smoothest transition, but let's talk about some of the news that's happening. Not Street Fighter, but Mortal Kombat's previous publisher back in the day, back in the 90s, Mortal Kombat 2 released on a label known as Acclaim. This was one of the old school, video game labels. Basically, they used to do a lot of movie tie-ins, like video games, so like Spider-Man, Alien franchise, Wolverine, a ton of stuff. There was a ton of like, Back to the Future. They were the label for that. So all those like movie tie-in games,
kind of moving.
Yeah, Acclaim was in charge of that. But they also did.
Were they in charge of the Mortal Kombat movie tie-ins as well? Do you know?
I don't think so.
I remember there were a lot of Mortal Kombat movies that came out that they seem like they're styled and like you can tell that there's kind of an older vintage style movie, kind of like that Back to the Future kind of vibe, and you're like, okay. But for Mortal Kombat, I don't think it really worked as well.
The old movies were absolutely abysmal. Even the newest movie that came out, I did not like.
I tried.
Nah,
it was not my. I would watch the trailers, or like I think I watched one or two of those Mortal Kombat movies, or tried to. I would start them and then be like, oh
yeah, absolute bonzo.
I'm gonna go play the game real quick.
Dog water. Don't recommend. Maybe for nostalgia's sake. Acclaim had a lot of controversy back in like the 90s.
Of course.
Where they were like basically putting like nudity in their games and trying people to buy them. They like did some of these weird marketing stunts. Like for one of their games, they were for the UK, they're like, any baby that's named Toruk, which is like the title character of a game that they were releasing, they'll get like money, like $1,000 or something. But then it turns out everybody that like changed their name to Toruk, like every baby was like an actor. So they didn't actually do that. And then they got found out because of that. There was another one, they tried to buy the gravestones to like put the game ads on because the game coming out was like set in like a grave robber type thing. I don't know. They did some wild stuff.
Okay, if you were putting it like if it was an artificial setting, cool.
Oh.
But if you're actually buying people's tombstones, saying, "Hey, can I put an advertisement on the back of your grandpa?" Your grandpa was standing for this trust.
It was crazy. There was another one. It was like Burnout 2 was being released, which I guess was like a racing game or like a street racing game.
That makes sense.
And they said, they would cover the cost of any speeding ticket in the UK for like the month leading up to its release or something like that. And then the UK government had to come out and be like, yeah, we're not You can't tell people that. You can't do that.
That's not how this works.
So they had to walk it back. But anyways, that's the type of company that we're talking about here. They went bankrupt. They also got sued by many of their former employees for being laid off, no severance packages, things like that, voiding of contracts.
Voiding of contracts.
They also had this weird game. It was like the Exciting Adventures of Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen, like the Olsen twins.
Yeah.
And I think like something happened with that game. Either it didn't release or it did and it flopped, and then they didn't pay the royalties to the actors or something like that. So that also was a lawsuit that they had to do. Regardless, they crashed and burned. Hard. They crashed and burned. But now they are coming back.
Now they're back.
It's a new investor who has like purchased the rights to the trademarks and everything. And they're coming back. And they're going to be focusing on basically bringing back older IPs that were, from the 90s or before, and re-releasing them to the public nowadays under the new Acclaim banner. So interesting, to say the least. We'll have to see how that goes.
I'm going to have to wait and see as that develops a little bit more. This game's on NES. So Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah, NES, SNES.
Okay. So my mother's going to be able to beat me at a video game now.
Exactly. Okay. Maybe.
Cool. Maybe. Probably.
So
those older style games that she got to grow up with will probably get like a touch up to look more modern or like more like updated graphics probably.
That's what it sounds like. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're just going to be like re-releasing them just in like their 8-bit form, or if they're actually going to be like remaking some games.
I think I heard
they were kind of vague.
I think I saw a TikTok similar to this, or like kind of pointing in this direction.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, millennials will be like, hey, y'all thought that since you guys got newer games that y'all be able to be all great and whatnot. But now that they're re-releasing our games in your graphics, but still our games,
right?
Prepare to get your butts kicked. And I was like, okay, I don't know about all that, but we're gonna see.
There's been some good ones, and there's been some bad ones. So we'll have to see how that goes.
We'll have to see how that develops.
Next one, this is coming from New Rest for the Wicked. This is a new RPG that's coming out. It will now be independently published. This was previously a game that was going to be published by Take-Two Interactive, but Moon Studios, who originally made this game, I believe they're also the team behind Ori, the Ori games, like Ori Will of the Wisps, Ori and the Blind Forest. Those are like 2D platformers.
That's really part of those though.
They're really successful. This is a completely different style game that they're making though. I might be getting that mixed up. I'm not sure, but they now have the rights. They used to be published under Private Division, but then Private Division, which was under Take-Two Interactive, got immediately laid off and like liquidated basically.
Wow.
So most of the stuff got transferred over to like the individual studios because they kind of like Private Division was like a publisher for indie developers. So when Private Division went away, all the indie developers still kind of were there, and they were able to take like their IPs and trademarks with them. But for Moon Studios, Take-Two Interactive actually decided to keep this game. They were like, we want No Rest for the Wicked.
We'll hold on to that one.
So then there was kind of like some negotiations and business deals going on, and now they finally have the rights. So they will be self-published, independent, No Rest for the Wicked. I don't know if we have a release date on them. Let me double check.
Because it's an RPG, RPG style game. You say?
Yes.
I do like RPGs. Those are my favorite genre, I think, of games. I think Elden Ring fits in that category.
Yeah.
Most FromSoft games fit in that RPG category. But there's also things like Skyrim, Fallout that also fit in that category.
Yeah.
So that's why RPGs are my favorite style of game, because it's got that adventure and that storytelling aspect behind it. Do we have a release date for No Rest for the Wicked?
I don't think we do.
A lot of games I've been seeing are like that have caught interest of mine for whatever reason have they'll say 2025 or they'll say no release date, and I'll be like, okay. If this is 2025 though, I'm like, I can generally wait. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting.
What?
Apparently I Googled it and it just says the initial release date was supposed to be a while ago.
Well, I think it came out in early access.
Okay.
So it is in early access. I think people are still able to purchase it in early access. Yes, it is available. But Ori, their first title, Ori and the Blind Forest, I believe, is 10 years old now.
Wow.
So that was kind of like their main hit. Really, really artistically beautiful side scroller adventure game. But now this is going to be like a more open world RPG style. So really excited to see what this, development studio, Moon Studios, ends up doing with it, especially now that they have basically free creative control over it as an independent studio. We love to see that.
We love to see that.
Next news. This one's going to be a fun one. Right before we actually started recording today, Xbox and Asus have announced that they are teaming up to release their new Xbox branded handheld gaming console. So this was rumored for a while. We even talked about some of the leaks here on the podcast, but it is finally here. This is an interesting one. So it was codenamed Project Kenan, and it's going to be manufactured by Asus. It's part of a larger effort to, quote, unify Windows and Xbox towards a universal library of Xbox and PC games. Project Bayside is also seeking to create a common Xbox user interface across multiple devices, both on Windows and in their handhelds. Interesting. Microsoft is also working on creating a single store for Windows and Xbox games and an easier path for developers to build titles across handhelds, consoles, and PC. All right, JJ, what are your thoughts?
I have two different thoughts because I've always been a heavy PlayStation person, I guess you could say.
I am as well.
This kind of news is kind of like, okay, this follows kind of in a way after the PS Portal. Like, I know that PlayStation has had some issues really getting down the handheld system that they've been trying to lock down for a while now. We had the PSP, the PS Vita, and now we have something new. And so it kind of feels like Xbox is like, okay, cool. You've been struggling in trial and error for so long. Now it's our turn to start.
Yep.
So just kind of hopping on that. We need a handheld system bandwagon because we've seen even Nintendo did that.
Yep.
They moved
Nintendo
away from,
pretty much
Nintendo did that for anybody. Nintendo did that before pretty much everybody did. PC gamers were like, okay, well, we'll have the Steam Deck.
Yep.
That here's for doing pretty well. I've not heard anything around the Steam Deck doing bad in terms of numbers or anything like that. So I feel like this has been for Xbox fans. This has been for a long time coming. But as a PlayStation person, I'm always going to be like, oh, of course they got to hop on our bandwagon and whatnot, try to steal some of that thunder out of our cape for a little bit. So I feel kind of personal about it, but in a way it's also like, okay, Xbox people, because I do have some friends that do play just Xbox. Y'all got it. Y'all deserve it. Congratulations. Hopefully it does really well, because I'm not really big on Microsoft or Xbox specifically. I think I play on a PC. As I'm trying to get into a PC, I think I am going the Windows route, but I'm primarily using Steam rather than Microsoft stores and whatnot. So there's been some issues about that. We'll see how this develops a little bit, though.
Yeah, we have some details on it. So let's get into some details for people that might be interested. So biggest question is going to be, will the Xbox and Asus Kenan run Xbox games or just Windows games? Because it's kind of like a weird mixture. And they basically said, this is a tried and true Windows PC in essence, meaning that you cannot bring most of your Xbox library to this device. But if you have like a PC with Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and stuff like that, those titles would be able to transfer over. Right. But it's going to be separate. Like if you have games on Xbox, I don't think it transfers over.
I don't think it transfers over.
It's a Windows PC in handheld form. It's running Windows, not
hence
like
why
Xbox
they said
UI.
Microsoft, and they're trying to get Windows and Xbox games into a single library or store moving forward. So that's going to be pretty. So I guess you can't play certain Call of Duties won't be on there.
Yeah, we'll
unless
have to
it's
see.
in the Microsoft store.
Or unless you have Game Pass, I'm guessing something like that. So this will be an interesting one. This will probably be the biggest competitor to the Steam Deck, most likely. Nintendo Switch kind of has their own demographic because it's all the Nintendo exclusives and originals, things like that. But this is going to be competing directly with the Steam Deck. So it's going to be interesting. We don't have any official word on like the specs and like what the performance is going to look like. That would all just be, kind of guessing game here. But the closest comparison you can probably find is the Asus ROG Ally or Ally X. That is kind of like their version of a handheld that Asus has already made. Before. That's probably the precursor to what Microsoft saw and was like, hey, we want you to do that, but for Windows, for Microsoft,
Windows, please.
for Xbox. Yep. So that's an interesting one. We'll have to see. My biggest concern is going to be the price, in my opinion, because that's going to be the biggest factor on as to whether or not people are going to buy it. Because, I mean, I'm not a big handheld gaming person. I think I just don't travel enough for it to be viable for me. So I never really understood the appeal of like the Steam Deck and the Switch and having it portable, because I'm always either at my like setup desktop or like connected to a TV. But if people want a game on the go, this
this is something that is definitely. I guess I would think that I would assume at least that because I'm not going to say they're rivals, but Xbox and PlayStation are so similar in the way that they're both household names and staples for video game console gaming base.
That's true.
That they'd be probably similarly priced, but they could, since it is, as you said, in direct competition with the Steam Deck. I mean, I usually think of PC gamers for some reason like in a league of their own. Like just a whole different tier because of how much goes into just a PC itself.
Yeah, it's a big investment.
So anything that goes into like even handheld PC gaming is going to be more expensive. Like I think the Steam Deck is $500 more than the PlayStation Portal is. I think the PlayStation Portal you'll probably pay
Steam Deck's only like 400, 500.
Okay. So that's still a decent
but it's basically
$100 range.
console.
Yeah, but it's basically a console that you have in your hands versus the PlayStation Portal is a little bit different, and I don't really know what avenue Xbox and Microsoft are trying to go here. If they're going more the PlayStation Portal competitive route,
Portal is
be different.
Portal's not actually a handheld console. It's basically just like what the Wii U gamepad was, where it can act as like a secondary screen and controller. But the PS5 is actually running the games. It's just casting it to that screen. But
so you can't actually travel with the PlayStation Portal.
Exactly. You can't leave like your house with it.
What's the point of the PlayStation Portal?
Exactly.
That's not much of a point. Okay.
But the Steam Deck and the Xbox handheld that's going to be coming out, those actually run the games because they are a computer. They run it from the handheld console, just like the Switch does. I mean, you put the cartridge in and it's running it. So, it'll be interesting. No release date or anything.
Okay. It's just they're talking about it.
They basically just, I think this just was information that was delivered. So
okay. Still in its early stages.
Yeah, very early stages. We'll have to wait and see. Going forward, let's talk about some of the coming up releases that we can look forward to this year as gamers. The first one actually isn't a game itself. It's going to be the season 2 of The Last of Us show adaptation on Max. That's coming out April 13th. So, have you played The Last of Us games? Have you watched The Last of Us show?
I did not watch The Last of Us show.
Okay.
There was a period of time where I got really, I guess after COVID, because I'd spend a lot of time either indoors or if I did go outside, I'd go on my own walks. But I played The Last of Us, started playing The Last of Us Part 1.
Yeah.
And I really liked it at first, and it was going well. I still haven't finished it, though. My brother picked it up, finished the first one, and then the second one as well, which I was like, okay, try hard. You just had to steam through it. You didn't do anything. You didn't explore. You didn't try to platinum it. You just kind of just went straight through the story. It was like, okay, I like this. But I didn't really care. I was at a point where I was like, I don't really want to keep seeing every time I cut on either Netflix or TikTok or something about how, this video game you guys really like, we're turning it into a show. I don't know if I want to watch that. I've already played the game. So unless you're bringing some new story aspect to it or some twist to it, there's not really a means for me to want to engage with this. You know?
I agree. And that was my initial worry when it was first announced that they were adapting it to a series.
Is it good?
It's well made. It's pretty good. I think the game is better. I think it tells the story better. Just flat out. It's longer. The game's longer. There's more dialogue and things like that. So you just spend more time with the characters. Also, I think that story lends itself to being immersed, like being in the actual perspectives of those characters and doing those actions. I mean, it's one of the most gripping experiences in gaming. So the show is good.
It's good.
But that's because the story in the game is so good. Now, the performances are really well done. You know, Pedro Pascal does a great job. They do kind of change the story a little bit from the game. There are some new characters and moments that are kind of added into the first season that aren't there in the game. And there are some things in the game that aren't like shown in the series just because they had to cut for time. So it is a different experience. So for fans of the Last of Us franchise, I do recommend checking it out because I don't think they do a bad job.
Of course not.
But it's not as good as the game, in my opinion.
And that's going to be probably my opinion as well.
Now,
I'm more of a gamer than a watcher.
Right.
Because it's just like, the immersive level that you can really get into. You get to see, your character hesitating to make certain decisions or certain choices under pressure. And it's like you're in those shoes.
And it's a scary game.
It is. Like that was a point where I was still worried about playing games that kind of like scared me a little bit. And it was just like the off guardness of certain enemies.
Those
and also
clickers.
Just not knowing how to fight some of them. Because it's just like, if I can't see them, but they can hear me, that unnerves me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you just got to sneak around. I'm not sneaking around. I want to fight.
It's so good. And then obviously the second game, Last of Us Part 2, when it first released was extremely controversial for some of the plot choices that were made.
Implemented, yes.
I'm not going to go into specifics just in case people haven't watched it.
I haven't played it. Also,
because some people watching might have not played the game, but have watched the show. So they don't know what's going to happen next. So I'm not going to go into spoilers.
Gotcha.
But that had a pretty intense reaction when it first dropped. And they will be adapting that into this second season. They've already confirmed. So very curious to see how they play that off, how they execute it, what that's going to look like for the future of the show. Because I think they said they don't want to end it here at season 2, even though there's only 2 games.
Okay, so
and I don't know if
the story.
Yeah, I don't know if they're splitting the second game into multiple seasons, because they covered all of game 1 in season 1. But I think they might be doing like season 2 is only half of Last of Us Part 2, and then season 3 might be the second half. Not sure yet. That's just me speculating. But they do want to make more seasons of this. So.
And that would make sense, because in terms of like length of the game, even the first game, even with them cutting content, it sounds like it was still pretty long in terms of season 1. So they might have learned something from season 1, being like, okay, we probably shouldn't try to do or tackle an entire game and limit it to just one season. So if we can better divide that moving forward, that'd be a pretty smart move on their part.
I agree. And there was one thing, this isn't spoilers, or it is for people who haven't seen the show, not the game. Okay. So if people haven't seen season 1, tune out now. They started doing this thing in the intros of the first couple episodes where it was a flashback to before the outbreak, where they were like talking about how it spread, patient 0. We got a little bit more information on like why a fungal parasite like that could evolve in a world that The Last of Us like takes place in. And then after like episode 3 or whatever, they were all like cold opens. So it would be like a before, and then it would cut to like what is actually happening in the show after the like show's intro. Really, really well done. Really, really immersive. And it was adding new information that we kind of could gather from the game, from like all the lore bits, like the voice recordings and things like that, but was never actually shown. They were actually showing that in the show in a new way, which was really compelling. That was really cool. I'm like, oh, that's something that we can do in a show, because we're not having to follow those characters' perspectives the whole time. Whereas in a game, you are that protagonist for, you know, the entirety of the game. I was like, that's a good way to use the medium. And then after like episode 3 or 4, they never do it again. They just go back to, you know, telling the shows, which is fine because the show's good. But I'm like, but that was something new that you were adding that we didn't get in the games.
That the gamers weren't getting fully. And so that was really... That probably really did.
That was engaging. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Gamers. That probably got a lot of people that like were heavy Last of Us gamers, and just brought them on. It was like, okay, not only do I, because some people don't do what I do. They're not gonna platinum a game. They're gonna try and find every item. Sometimes I'm playing a game and I'm like, this is not a game where I'm gonna do that. And so for a gamer that's not going to go that extra step and do all that extra stuff to get these lore bits, to see the show and them actually going into detail, I'm like, you know, hey, this is why this voice recording, it's like, hey, I remember getting that from the game. I remember doing this in the game.
Exactly.
You know, just that would have just brought on more gamers. And it probably, if I'd like, you know, gathered these extra items in The Last of Us Part 1, then I probably would have been like, just let me see a clip. Just let me see a clip of it.
Or see what it actually Easter egg.
A little Easter egg, you know.
That was my biggest critique of the show, because they started doing something that was like really, really good. And I'm like, oh, this is going to elevate it. And then they stopped doing it. And I was like, okay, well, the show's still good, but
it's just like you took that extra element
Why
out.
show it to me? You know, the clip from Uncut Gems. Why show it to me if you're not going to give it to me? Like, why tease me like that?
Why do that?
I don't know if they ran out of time or what. It was like, it was so cool. It was just like completely cold open intros. Like there was one where they were in like a lab where the patient 0, and they finally figured out it was a fungus, and the doctors were like, oh, we're so screwed. Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, more of that, please. That's terrifying. Nothing after that. I'm like, maybe see downfall of some of the cities, maybe some government responses and things like that with FEMA. Like
initial responses to it. Yeah.
Just didn't see it.
Just a great ingredient that just said, we don't want that no more.
Just like, took it from me.
You like that? That's crazy.
That's crazy. We're not going to do it ever again.
Never again. Maybe you might see it in season 2, but we don't know yet.
All right. Moving forward, we have Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Official release date is now June 26th of this year. The trailer is out on YouTube. I think it's like a 10-minute gameplay like trailer that just shows like cutscenes and different gameplays and things like that. Obviously, the next title from Kojima Productions, the visionary Hideo Kojima. And I'm not gonna lie, it does look pretty awesome. The Decima engine that they use to build the visuals are second to none in terms of like facial animation and just the actual imagery that it's able to produce. Absolutely beautiful stuff. And Hideo Kojima is obviously a genius when it comes to creating those visual feasts for you. So that's going to be an interesting one. I didn't play the first one.
Didn't either. I'm not even going to say a lot.
Didn't play it. I did watch it. I watched a playthrough of it.
That's good.
It's weird because it's Kojima. You know, it's going to be a little out there, but it's really, really cool. So I am kind of excited for Death Stranding 2 out June 26th. I think it's a PS5 exclusive.
It sounds like it is.
So I don't think it's coming to PC yet. But yeah, PS5 exclusive. Really cool stuff. So check out the trailer on YouTube. Just some really gorgeous visuals. Norman Reedus coming back to, play the titular protagonist. Really cool stuff. So recommend that for people that are interested. Another upcoming game that Cody is very excited about. I know he's absolutely devastated that he's not here to talk about it himself. Is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 officially releasing July 11th. So that is obviously the remake or remaster, I guess, of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4, now coming to next-gen consoles. No career mode in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4, I believe, and that was something that Cody was really looking forward to. So the fact that that's not there, he was actually very upset about. So I'm sure other fans will
share his sentiments, feel the same way about it. Yeah.
And they were doing like an interesting teaser for this. They were like, there was like a leaked image, and then it was like March 14th or things like that, or March 12th, I can't remember. So people thought that they were actually just going to drop the game in March. Like they were going to release it.
There you go.
But it was actually just like the trailer announcement that it's coming out in July 11th. So Cody was also upset about that because he was like, I'm going to get the game. It's going to be... Nah, he's going to have to wait.
Nah, he got a trailer. He got a trailer release date. That's crazy. No, I would not like that. That's tough.
Nah, it's tough. So yeah. Did you play any of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games?
I think I might have played like one when I was like maybe a couple years back, and I was like, okay, skateboarding is... Because I couldn't skateboard as a kid. I tried teaching myself. Didn't go well. No, I tried having a neighbor teach me who was doing it all the time in our neighborhood. Didn't go well. So I was like, maybe I'm just meant to stick to video games. Tried it there, and I was like, I'm getting similar results.
I'll play another Call of Duty campaign.
I'm still falling off the skateboard. All right, let's not. You know what? This isn't my type of game. This is fine. Skateboarding is just an aspect of my life that will never be fulfilled.
No, but I can appreciate it. I was actually a huge fan that they brought it into the Olympics. I don't know if you watched that. Yeah, you didn't see it?
I did not see skateboarding.
You guys need to tune in to the clips that are on YouTube now of like the Olympic skateboarders. Really, really fun stuff.
Is it like the Olympic breakdancing?
Nah, it's better. They're so cool. Also, Olympic BMX. Sick.
I didn't really see that.
Sports. Insane tricks on that. It was in Paris, the Paris Olympics. So yeah. Totally check that out. It's really, really cool. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, though, July 11th. So stay tuned for that. Summer is going to be a fun one. Death Stranding in June, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater in July. And we have another new title on the way, a little farther out, though. And we've been talking about this a couple of times on the podcast, but now we have some more details. The next Battlefield will be coming out April of next year, April 2026. So it's a ways off, but they are developing it. They already announced that there's going to be new movement features added into this one. So a crouch sprint, a combat dive, and a leading roll are going to be implemented into this one. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. They also said they are implementing a new recoil system on the guns to make it more realistic. We'll have to see. I mean, I don't
see how that looks. It kind of sounds like what Call of Duty does every new Call of Duty.
I feel like every shooter does that, but okay.
Every time a shooter has a new version of itself come out, you're like, okay, now I have to relearn the guns or figure out how do I get back to, because you get really good at that one, and then a new version comes out, and you're like, so we start again.
And this one is going to be in the modern warfare style. It's not going to be in the future or in the past.
Okay.
So it will be like modern guns, things like that. It will also be featuring a 60 hertz tick rate on the servers, which is actually pretty good, especially compared to the previous Battlefield games and Call of Duty currently out now. I think the only ones that have like higher ones are going to be like Counter-Strike and Valorant, tactical shooters.
Yeah.
So really, really cool to see there. And their Battlefield Labs playtest, which they opened up to the public, you could apply for it and things like that. that, started on March 7th.
This
so
year?
people already have,
Really?
it started last week, yeah. So people already have their hands on it. Obviously, they probably have NDAs, so we're not going to see any gameplay and things like that unless people leak. Hint, hint. Exclusive source, Gamer Guild. Hit us up. So that started March 7th, and that's going to be, basically instant player feedback in terms of like beta testing and things like that for
of course.
the future development of the game. The fact that they're starting that so early on, I mean, it's not coming out for another year, over a year. And they're already starting the player testing. Love that.
We love to see that.
Yeah. I think that's, necessary in a lot of these titles, especially when you have things that come out that are just not polished, not good.
You're like, you could have taken, sometimes it's like, you could have taken the time. I know a lot of fans were looking forward to a game and they're like, okay, we were all looking forward to it, but this was not what we were either promised or were looking forward to.
Is there a title that you were really looking forward to on release? It dropped, you played it, and it was not what you wanted?
Fallout 76.
Oh.
That was how I felt. Fallout 76. My friend had Cyberpunk. He did Cyberpunk. He was talking it up the entire way up to release. And he pre-ordered it. And then we were all in the PlayStation party when he started it up and started playing it. And it was hilarious on my end, hilarious on all of our ends. And then we just hadn't, apparently he didn't learn from me about Fallout 76. And he was like, I'm going to pre-order it.
I'll pre-order
it. He did.
Trust.
Okay, go ahead. Trust, we'll see trial and error. Maybe Fallout was like a standalone thing.
It's funny because Cyberpunk is actually really, really well polished now. It's a great game.
But he had got it when it first dropped, and I was like,
brutal.
I'll wait. I was going to get it too, and I did eventually. And I was like, I'll just wait on it though. I'll wait till I hear it's doing a little bit better before doing anything that's involved with that. So yes.
Did you ever end up playing Cyberpunk?
I did.
Really?
I did. I haven't finished it.
Okay.
I keep starting it, and then I'll put it down. And I'll go back and I'll be like, I don't remember where I was at in the story. I restart.
You got to restart. Yeah. I'm the same way. Yeah. It's just such a huge game.
Exactly.
It's really so much to do, though. So I respect that one a lot. I think for me, most recently it was Civilization 7. We talked about that on the podcast, so I won't dive into it again. But that released and the user interface was absolutely abysmal. So I was like, yeah, I'm not buying that. But one that released that I was really looking forward to and then wasn't really exactly what I wanted was probably... trying to think because I don't pre-order games.
I don't either. Not often.
Very,
I have to look
few.
forward to it very
The last
much.
game I think I pre-ordered was Warhammer 40K, Space Marines 2. And that one I liked. It came out and it was awesome. So I liked that one. And then the other one was like Spider-Man PS4. Back when it first came out.
PS4. Not Spider-Man 2.
No.
Not the Miles Morales.
No.
Spider-Man.
The OG.
The OG.
I pre-ordered that. Digital Deluxe. 100% in like 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, that was a fast game.
It was quick, but it was really fun. I liked that one.
The Spider-Man normally are good plays, but sometimes they're fast. The second one, for some reason, doesn't feel as fast to me. I'm still playing it for whatever reason.
Really?
Still trying to get through it.
Wow. Well, we got new casting news on Spider-Man 4. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I've not seen that. Or if I did, I'd heard about it, and I don't think it was good news that I'd heard about it.
I think this one just came out. It was like Sadie Sink. She's from Stranger Things.
Maybe I did hear about it.
She got cast in Spider-Man 4. We don't know who she's playing.
We don't know who she's playing, but she's in
Spider-Man 4. Also, I guess Spider-Man 4 is going to be like a reboot because after what happened in Spider-Man No Way Home, everybody forgot who Peter Parker was and things like that. So I guess this is technically a new thing that they're doing with Sony. I don't know. There's too many now, honestly. MCU, tough.
I don't know. A lot of people have opinions about the MCU and how it kind of like went. I think at least in the aspect of Spider-Man, how that was going, I think I like the way they ended it with No Way Home.
Okay.
No Way Home and Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And I think that leads us to a very interesting start. Because at first I was like, I did not like the Tom Holland Spider-Man. I know a lot of people did. I didn't at first.
Yeah.
But then he grew on me because it's less of the...
Get used to it.
You see like how the 80s and 90s portrayed teenagers. You got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and whatnot, and how they're more ninja than teenage.
Yeah.
But then you see like the remakes now, and it's like they more emphasizes our modern day, what a teenager does and what they look like. And so I like that for Spider-Man. And now we see that he'll be forced to really come into, I guess you could say, his shoes of what Ben left him with.
Mature.
More matureness. Hey, greater power, greater responsibility. Yeah. Let's see you be responsible because you were not responsible, and we saw what happened.
It's true. Consequences of your actions. I really like the Spider-Verse movies too.
I do.
The third one is a long ways away, but I'm really excited for that one as well. Yeah.
Really anticipating that one. That one's on my list of movies.
It just baffles me that Sony can make movies like Spider-Verse, right? Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, and then also make Kraven the Hunter, one of the worst films I've ever, and Madam Web.
The film.
Yeah. Diabolical.
I didn't want to watch it. I wanted to watch it.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch it because I'm like, I don't think they're going to do him justice. At first, when I first saw the trailer, I thought it was a vampire movie at first. And then I realized it was Kraven the Hunter. And I was like, oh, that's okay. That's interesting direction.
I wanted to talk again about, we were talking about Last of Us Part 2. Obviously, the studio behind that is Naughty Dog Studios.
Yep.
We did get a little bit more information about their upcoming title, their new IP. So that'll be the last thing we talk about here before we wrap things up. Let me find what I was finding.
And were they ones that made Watch Dogs as well?
No.
Oh, no.
No.
I don't know why
that was Ubisoft.
Dogs and dogs. Okay. Thinking dogs and dogs for some reason.
So this one is, Naughty Dog did Uncharted and Crash Bandicoot, I think. And
Crash Bandicoot was cool.
And they did the Last of Us games. So their new game coming out is called Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. This is set 2,000 years into the future. It's an alternate universe where the timeline deviates from ours starting around the 1980s. So if you watch the trailer, they have like all the popular 1980s brands were still in like this futuristic 2,000 year future, I guess. So that's why. There is a mysterious new religion forming around this time that is starting to take hold. Naughty Dog reportedly spent years working on this timeline and how the religion changed throughout the years. So they try to take a lot of effort into this world building. Naughty Dog's previous games have always had like an ally/companion. So they wanted you to feel lost and alone in a mysterious universe this time. No companion, single protagonist.
Single. Wow.
Quote, this is from Neil Druckmann, the game director. I really wanted to make a game about faith and religion, but also about being lonely. It's interesting. No one has been heard from on this planet for 600 years is kind of like what you're going into. They talked about that in the trailer, like the person you're playing as going in like is uncharted territory, basically. Uncharted. Pun intended. There's a full interview on YouTube, creator to creator, from Neil Druckmann, The Last of Us, and Alex Garland, who is like a visionary director. He did Civil War, Ex Machina, really, really interesting conversation. So that's a full interview on YouTube, creator to creator, 53-minute interview just between the two of them. So highly recommend people go check that out for more information about just the creative process behind making overarching stories like that. But are you excited for Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet?
I've never heard of Intergalactic, actually. This is the first time hearing about it, and I'm already hooked. I'm already very interested.
You can check out the trailer. It was announced during the Game Awards last year, so it was it's only been revealed for a couple of months, but this has been what they've been working on for the last like 2-4 years.
Okay,
this is their brand new IP, so I mean,
interesting to see how that goes.
I'm excited. I love sci-fi personally. That's like my favorite genre. So I hope they do it
top three. I hope they do a good job. Top three favorite genres.
All right, what's the other two?
I mean, I'm a fantasy person, so medieval fantasy.
Classic.
I don't know what the first one is. I don't know what the top one is. So maybe it's top two.
Top two.
It's top two because I go back and forth between, okay, I like
horror. Would horror be a genre?
Horror might be a genre, but I feel like you could also mix in those other two with horror and do it well. Because I think like without, you can't do, you can do a good horror without some fantasy aspect to it. It's just, if you mix the two well, it does, it just.
And you can have sci-fi horror too.
And you can have sci-fi horror too, because there's like that unrealism that kind of brings into it, but it's like, it's not too far off. Like in Intergalactic, I can definitely see like the parallels between, okay, well, you're lost and alone, but this is also about a religion that's kind of branched off for a little bit.
Yeah.
And so navigating faith and religion, but also feeling lost and alone, and how there's parallels in that. Because if you have faith in religion, you're not supposed to feel so lost and alone.
Yeah,
because
you have your religion,
secure. You're supposed to feel safe and secure because you have your religion to back you up and fall back on. In this case, and normally it's like, normally in religion, you see groups forming.
Yeah.
If you have Christianity, they tell you to go to church. That way you have that community aspect. Well, in any religion, whether it be a cult or something that's more normally practiced, you have that group security, group mindset of going into this thing. So having this game where you're now being forced into shoes, where you are, you practice a religion and you're faithful Maybe
Well,
not.
I don't know
We
if
have to
the
see.
protagonist is following the religion.
Are you going into this planet then? Maybe
I think
follows
you're
this
going to
religion?
this planet and the world surrounding you is like this religion is starting to like take over like all of culture. But I don't know. I don't think we know yet if the protagonist follows
is
that.
following that.
We don't know yet.
And they might be like exposed to it and it might become an option for you in
Exactly.
the game.
That's another thing that can happen. So
I
it's
think some
interesting.
people might lean towards it because they'd be like, I don't want to feel alone.
Yeah.
I want to
Well,
explain it.
I just love the stories that Naughty Dog writes. So I'm optimistic for this one for sure.
I was a little hesitant towards Naughty Dog. Actually, is I think on my list of more hesitant developers for me to go to for games because I played Uncharted. I played multiple Uncharteds and could not find myself liking any of them for some reason.
I love.
I finished one or two for some reason. I was like, this isn't doing it for me. And the same thing with what's the game's name? It has Lara Croft in it.
Tomb Raider.
Nope, couldn't do it. For whatever reason,
like Tomb Raider.
Did not like Tomb Raider.
That one's a little bit more niche.
I was like, why is this?
Yeah.
I hear these are supposed to be like the staples, I think, of PlayStation at the time when I was trying them out. I was like, these are the staples of PlayStation. Yep. Maybe I'm an Xbox person because PlayStation's not doing it for me. That was just how
treason.
That was just how high on the list. I know. It's supposed to be a PlayStation exclusive secret. I wasn't supposed to tell y'all that. Cut tape.
Well, that's all the main news that we had for you all this week here at the Gamer Guild. JJ, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Great conversations, great stuff. Good favorite game choice, Elden Ring.
Of course.
So a lot of people would be afraid, I think, to say that because it's so new.
Is it?
Yeah.
I feel like Elden Ring's been out for such a long time.
Well, a lot of people
now.
say like Minecraft or things like that.
Yeah,
but
those have been out much longer. I know Elden Ring's in terms of Minecraft has been out a lot less.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot more in the zeitgeist. So, but yeah, it's a great choice. Great choice. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening. I've been your host, Noah Bowers.
I've been your guest, JJ.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.
The Gamer Guild podcast is recorded at Augusta University's Pamplin TVC and Podcasting Lab. Our producer is Jackson Garner. The Pamplin TVC and Podcasting Lab supervisor is Jasmine Garcia. Music is by Ethan Balducci. The opinions stated are that of the individual and not Augusta University.